It started with the wine. Pinot Grigio, chilled just right. Always poured into those tall-stemmed glasses. My wife insisted on hand-washing herself. I remember the first night Chloe stayed after the kids went to bed. Samantha handed her a glass like they'd been doing this for years, not like Chloe had only been babysitting for 3 weeks. They giggled together over something I didn't catch, some story about a professor or a guy from a dating app, I think. I was finishing up a project on my laptop, but I watched the way Samantha leaned in, her hand brushing Chloe's forearm as she laughed. It was subtle, easy to overlook, but I noticed it. Of course I did. We hired Chloe after our last sitter bailed without warning. Samantha found her through some university parent network, glowing references, all of them. She was 22, studying early childhood education, fresh-faced with that wholesome, natural glow that made her look like she belonged in a Target ad for young moms. The kids loved her instantly. Ellie, our 5-year-old, would draw little hearts with Chloe written inside them. Max, our 7-year-old, followed her around like a puppy. And Samantha, well, Samantha finally seemed to breathe again. That was the first gift Chloe gave us. After months of tension, missed dinners, half-finished arguments, late-night silences, my wife was smiling again. Relaxed. I used to think it was just the stress of parenting, of being tired, overworked, touched out. Now I'm not so sure. The second gift Chloe gave us was time. Samantha and I started going on date nights again. Nothing extravagant. Dinner at that Italian place we always talked about, but never went to. A movie sometimes. Bowling once. We'd come home to find Chloe curled up on the couch with the kids asleep upstairs, a soft blanket around her legs, her hair in a loose braid, a mug of tea in her hands. She'd always smile at me when I walked in. Always. Not flirty, not yet, but open, warm. Looking back, it was probably inevitable. The third gift, well, that one's more complicated. I don't remember the first time Chloe stayed after bedtime. I mean, really stayed. But I remember the first time I noticed it. It was late. Maybe 11:30. I came downstairs because I'd forgotten my phone in the kitchen, and I heard them. Not the murmured conversation I usually walked in on. Not polite laughs or quiet stories. This was different. They were behind the sliding door to the den, Samantha and Chloe. The light was on, but the blinds were drawn. The laughter I heard was intimate, soft, breathy, laced with something else I couldn't quite name at the time. Not sexual, not exactly, but close. Like the space between two people who've crossed one line and are considering the next. I paused outside the door. I didn't knock. I didn't go in. I just stood there, listening. And then I left. Quietly. I told myself it was nothing. Girl talk. Wine-fueled bonding. Samantha hadn't had many friends lately, and Chloe was young, yes, but mature, smart, capable, easy to like. That night, Samantha came to bed later than usual. She was smiling when she walked in, barefoot, her hair a little messy, cheeks flushed in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. She slid under the covers and curled against me without saying a word. She didn't smell like her usual lavender lotion. She smelled like Chloe's shampoo, coconut, and vanilla. My eyes opened. I didn't say anything. The next morning, everything was normal. Pancakes for the kids, Samantha sipping coffee in one of my old shirts. Chloe came by later that afternoon for another shift. She and Samantha exchanged a look that made my stomach clench. It wasn't guilty. It was conspiratorial. I found myself watching her more. Chloe always wore those loose linen dresses with thin straps that barely clung to her shoulders. She never wore a bra underneath them. Nothing indecent, but still noticeable, especially when she leaned down to pick up Ellie or reach for something on the kitchen counter. Her laugh had a rhythm to it that stuck in your brain. Light, musical, never forced. She'd stand close when she spoke, always looking you straight in the eye. It wasn't flirty, not overtly, but it lingered. And then there was Samantha, more relaxed than she'd been in months. She started putting on makeup again. Her hair was suddenly styled every day, even when she wasn't going anywhere. I caught her painting her toenails on the porch once while Chloe was inside with the kids. Bright red. The same color she wore back when we first started dating. I hadn't seen her wear it in years. That was the week I started dreaming about Chloe. Not explicitly. Not at first. Just flashes, her bare shoulders in the kitchen light. The way her legs tucked under her when she sat on the couch. The smile she gave Samantha when she thought I wasn't looking. In one dream, I came downstairs in the middle of the night and found them asleep on the couch, Samantha's head in Chloe's lap, Chloe's fingers playing lazily with her hair. I woke up with a tightness in my chest I couldn't explain. Something was happening, but I didn't know what. Not really. Not yet. So I watched. I waited. And the next time Chloe stayed late, I didn't go to bed early. I stayed up. They say when something feels off, it usually is. But when it's your own wife, your own house, your own damn life, that truth becomes harder to accept, harder to admit, especially when denial is so much more comfortable. It started subtly. Samantha began coming home later than usual. Work drinks, she'd say, slipping her heels off at the door like nothing had changed. Or, I stopped to run some errands. You know how traffic is. Sometimes she wouldn't even say anything at all, just disappear upstairs to shower, like her absence didn't deserve explanation. But I paid attention. I started marking the time. Monday, Chloe arrived at 3 p.m. Samantha left at 3:45 and didn't return until after 9. Wednesday, Chloe again. Samantha's car was still gone when I put the kids to bed. Friday, same story. Chloe was in the house longer than she needed to be, and Samantha was nowhere to be found. I didn't know what I was looking for yet, just that something was wrong. Chloe's name kept showing up on the whiteboard calendar in the kitchen, always scheduled for longer shifts. 2 hours here, 3 hours there. Odd timing too. Some days right after lunch, other times around dinner. And the strangest part? Samantha didn't even try to hide it. You don't mind if Chloe covers again Thursday, do you? She asked one night while folding towels on the bed. I might have a thing at the gallery. Not sure how long it'll run. What kind of thing? She shrugged. Just networking. Boring. You wouldn't want to come. She didn't look up from the towel in her hands. I nodded, but my eyes didn't leave her face. She was lying, but not nervously. It was casual. Practiced. I started keeping notes. Quietly, on my phone. Just dates, times. Where Samantha said she was. Whether Chloe had been there. It felt obsessive. It felt paranoid. But it also felt like the only thing keeping me sane. Then came the Thursday. That Thursday. I was supposed to work late, client meetings back to back. But a cancellation opened up my afternoon, so I left early. I didn't text. Didn't call. I wanted to see what networking looked like at 5:15 p.m. on a Thursday. When I pulled into the driveway, Chloe's car was already there. Samantha's too. Strange. I stepped inside as quietly as I could. The house was still. No cartoons, no sounds from the kitchen. Just the low hum of conversation, muffled by the walls. It was coming from the living room. I moved down the hallway slowly, careful not to let the floorboards creak. And then I saw her. Chloe. Standing by the fireplace, her face flushed, lips parted slightly like she'd just been laughing or kissed. Her hair was a little messy, like she'd pulled it down from a bun. She had no shoes on. She jumped when she saw me. Oh, hey, you're home early. Behind her, Samantha stepped into view. She was wearing a robe. Not the thick, comfy kind you throw on after a shower. No, this was silky. Short. The color of champagne. It clung to her hips and showed more thigh than I'd seen in months. She started, then tightened the belt at her waist. I wasn't expecting you. Yeah, clearly, I said, my voice low. Chloe shifted her weight, suddenly awkward. I was just about to head out. Sure you were. The silence that followed was like static. Samantha cleared her throat, tried to smile. We were just talking. Wine and girl talk. You know how it is. I looked at the wine glasses on the coffee table. One of them still had lipstick on the rim. Samantha's shade. But there were also 2 plates. Cheese, strawberries, chocolate. Girl talk. I nodded slowly, my eyes moving between them. Chloe looked away. Samantha met my gaze, but only for a moment. Then she turned, as if the conversation was over. The rest of that evening played out like a badly rehearsed stage play. Chloe left in a rush. Samantha changed clothes and acted like nothing had happened. She made spaghetti, asked about my day, laughed at something on TV. But I wasn't watching the screen. I was watching her. Every word out of her mouth sounded just a little too rehearsed. Every movement, every smile, felt like it had been performed before, just not for me. That night, I lay awake long after she fell asleep. I kept going back to that moment. Chloe's startled face, the flushed cheeks, the robe. The intimacy between them that neither tried to explain, let alone hide. I could still smell Chloe's perfume in the living room. Something soft and floral, with a hint of vanilla. I closed my eyes, and there they were again. Laughing together on the couch. Samantha's fingers tracing Chloe's bare shoulder. Chloe tilting her head to whisper something into her ear. The robe sliding off, slowly, like silk on skin. I shook the image away, but it clung. The next morning, Samantha was gone before I woke up. No note, no coffee, no text, just an empty mug on the counter, and Chloe's car pulling into the driveway right on cue. She came in like she always did, smiling, chipper, effortlessly charming. She said hello, asked how I slept, complimented the shirt I was wearing. But she didn't meet my eyes. Long night. I asked casually. Her smile froze for just a second. Oh, I guess. Yeah. She turned toward the living room, and I watched her go. And that's when I knew. Something was happening between them. And it wasn't just friendship. I didn't mean to see it. That's the part one keep coming back to when I replay it in my head. The moment that changed everything. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't digging through drawers or checking messages or acting like some jealous cliché. I was just walking through my own damn house. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Chloe had the kids, Samantha was supposedly out, and I was working from home for once. I came downstairs to grab a glass of water, my mind still half buried in spreadsheets and emails, when I noticed Chloe's phone on the kitchen counter. Face up, unlocked. I slowed without meaning to. The screen lit up as I passed, a soft vibration against the granite. A notification banner slid down from the top, bright and unmistakable. I stopped. I told myself I was just curious, that anyone would glance at a screen lighting up in front of them. The preview photo loaded before my brain caught up. Samantha, topless. It wasn't artistic. It wasn't subtle. It was my wife, sitting on the edge of our bed, bare skin glowing in the afternoon light, her hair falling over one shoulder in that careless way she never did for me anymore. One hand covered her chest just enough to tease rather than hide. Her mouth was slightly open, eyes half-lidded, looking directly into the camera. Below the image was the message. Next time, your turn. The room tilted. I didn't touch the phone. Didn't pick it up. I just stood there, staring, my pulse roaring in my ears so loudly I thought Chloe might hear it from the other room. My first instinct was disbelief, some reflexive denial that tried to twist reality into something else. A joke. A misunderstanding. Anything. But there it was. My wife. My bed. Her skin. Her words. I felt something break inside me. Not all at once, not dramatically, but like a fracture spreading quietly through bone. Heat flooded my chest, then drained away, leaving something cold and sharp in its place. Footsteps. I stepped back just as Chloe entered the kitchen, her hands dusted with flour from whatever craft she'd been doing with the kids. She smiled when she saw me, easy and open like always. Oh, hey. Everything okay? Yeah, I said too quickly, just grabbing water. She nodded, glanced at the counter, and casually flipped her phone face down. The movement was small, automatic, intimate in a way that made my stomach churn. I took my glass and left the room before I said something I couldn't take back. Upstairs, I locked myself in the bathroom and sat on the edge of the tub, elbows on my knees, staring at the floor. My reflection in the mirror looked unfamiliar, eyes too bright, jaw clenched so tight it ached. I thought about storming downstairs, confronting her, demanding answers from both of them. I didn't. Instead, I breathed. Anger came first. Hot, violent, almost blinding. Images flashed through my mind. Samantha's body, Chloe's hands, the way they must have touched each other when they thought I wasn't looking. The way they laughed behind closed doors. The wine, the robes, the glances. Then something else crept in. Curiosity. It disgusted me at first. The idea that alongside the rage, there was a darker pull, a need to understand how it happened, how long it had been going on, what Chloe saw in my wife, what my wife felt when she looked at her. I started noticing everything after that. The way Chloe watched Samantha when she thought no one else was paying attention. The way Samantha's voice softened when she said her name. How their conversations dipped into silence the moment I entered the room. How Chloe's cheeks flushed when Samantha stood too close. I didn't confront them. I didn't even let on that I knew. I watched. That night, Samantha came home late again. She kissed me quickly, distracted, her mind elsewhere. In bed, she turned away from me, her phone glowing softly in her hand before she slipped it under the pillow. I stared at the ceiling, wide awake. I imagined the photo she'd sent earlier. Wondered if there were more. Wondered what she wrote to Chloe when she was lying right beside me. The thought made my chest tighten, my body reacting in ways that confused, and angered me all at once. The next day, Chloe was different. She was quieter, careful. She didn't linger as close, didn't laugh as freely. But every so often, I'd catch her looking at me, not boldly, not flirtatiously, but with something like awareness. As if she knew the truth was sitting between us, unspoken and heavy. Once, when she handed me a mug of coffee, our fingers brushed. It was nothing, accidental, but the contact sent a jolt through me, sharp and unexpected. She looked up quickly, eyes widening just a fraction before she pulled her hand back. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "I should get back to the kids," she said softly. I watched her walk away, my heart pounding. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront them. Not yet. Explosions were easy. They were clean in their own way. But I wanted clarity. Control. I wanted to see how deep this went, how far they'd already crossed the line. And somewhere in the quiet, twisted corner of my mind, another question began to form, one I wasn't ready to answer yet. What would happen if I didn't stop it? What would happen if I let it unfold and simply watched? I turned onto my side and closed my eyes, Samantha's breathing steady beside me. Chloe's message burned into my memory like a brand. The truth was out now, and there was no going back. At first, all I wanted was revenge. The image of Samantha on Chloe's phone replayed in my mind like a slow loop. Topless, smirking, seductive. That message underneath it, "Next time, your turn." It wasn't just a betrayal. It was taunting, intimate in a way I hadn't seen from her in years. I couldn't stop picturing how it must have unfolded. The wine, the couch, fingers brushing skin, my wife sighing in someone else's arms. Someone half her age. Rage was easy in those first few days. It burned clean, hot, and useful. I'd think about confronting them, about pulling Chloe aside and saying, "You're fired." About waking Samantha up in the middle of the night and holding her phone in front of her face like a mirror to her guilt. But I didn't. Instead, I started thinking. What bothered me most, beyond the lying, beyond the secrecy, was that they had excluded me. Like I was some oblivious husband in a sitcom. Like my role was to stay quiet, pick up the kids, and smile politely while my wife explored new frontiers without so much as a discussion. But what if I didn't stay quiet? What if I turned the game around? The idea started slowly. A curiosity at first. Harmless. I began to talk to Chloe more, not in any overt way, not in some cartoonish come on, but subtly. Just enough. A compliment here. A well-placed joke there. I asked questions I hadn't before. About her classes, her plans after graduation, her hobbies, her taste in music, in wine, in people. She responded, cautiously at first, then with that same effortless warmth she gave everyone. Samantha didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she didn't care. Maybe that stung more than anything. That Friday night, Samantha was getting ready for one of her now frequent gallery events. She stood at the vanity mirror, slipping earrings into her ears while Chloe sat on the bed with Ellie, braiding her hair and telling her a story about princesses and dragons. I watched the way Samantha caught Chloe's eye in the mirror, just a flicker, a glance. There was something charged in it. Familiar. I stepped into the room. "Chloe, you staying late tonight?" She looked up quickly. "If that's okay." Samantha turned slightly, her smile easy. "You don't mind, do you? I might not be home till late." "Of course," I said. Always happy to have Chloe around. Chloe blushed. I watched it bloom across her cheeks like heat rising beneath skin. After Samantha left, the house grew quiet. The kids fell asleep fast. Chloe had that effect on them. I stayed downstairs, watching TV I didn't care about, sipping bourbon I didn't really want. Chloe eventually joined me, barefoot, curled into the corner of the couch with her legs tucked beneath her. She smelled like vanilla again. And something else, maybe the shampoo she'd borrowed from Samantha. We talked about nothing for a while. The kids, the weather, music. But there was something different in the space between us now, an undercurrent neither of us acknowledged, but both of us clearly felt. Her foot brushed against mine once. Didn't pull back. I glanced at her. "You've been coming by a lot lately." She smiled. "Guess that's a good sign, right?" "Depends on who you ask." She tilted her head. "Who would say otherwise?" I met her eyes. People who like to keep secrets. The words hung there, heavy and sharp. Her expression didn't shift, but the smile faded just enough. She looked down at her hands. "You seem tense tonight," she said. "Do I?" She nodded. "You okay?" I let the silence stretch before I answered. Would you believe me if I said no? She looked up. Her eyes searched mine for something. Trouble in paradise? I gave a soft laugh. You could say that. Another pause. Then, very quietly, she said, I've noticed things. Between you two. I didn't ask what she meant. We both knew. But I wanted to hear her say it. I wanted confirmation. Something real in a house full of lies. What have you noticed? I asked. She bit her lip, thinking. She seems distracted. Different lately. Different how? Her voice dropped slightly. Like she's looking for something she used to have. That was it. That line. That single sentence, it lit the fuse. Because I knew exactly what Samantha used to have. And I knew exactly who had taken it from her. Me. We used to be electric. We used to tear each other's clothes off in hotel bathrooms, in the back seat of the car, in the laundry room before the kids came home. And now? She barely kissed me goodbye. Barely looked up when I entered the room. She had replaced my hands with Chloe's. My mouth with hers. But if Chloe could make Samantha feel alive again, why couldn't I make Chloe feel the same? I began to lean into it more. The next few days, I paid closer attention to the rhythm of things. Samantha was gone more often now. Events, meetings, catching up with friends. Chloe stayed longer. Sometimes she didn't even wait for an invite. She'd sit next to me on the couch after bedtime, open a bottle of wine, ask about my day. I mirrored Samantha. I learned what Chloe liked. I teased her gently, let my compliments grow more personal. That color looks good on you. You've got a dangerous smile. You make this house feel warmer. She responded in kind. Nothing explicit. Nothing you could point to and say, this crossed a line. But the line was approaching, fast. And neither of us seemed interested in slowing down. Samantha never noticed. Or maybe she did. Maybe she thought she was the only one keeping secrets. The next Thursday night, Samantha left again. This time, she didn't bother making up an excuse. Just said, don't wait up. And I didn't. Because I had my own plans now. Not for confrontation. Not for revenge. Something more. Something quieter. And far more dangerous. Something had changed. Not all at once. Not in some grand, cinematic moment. But in pieces, small, almost imperceptible shifts in the way Chloe looked at me. The way she paused a second longer when I spoke. The way her body leaned in when we were close. The way she lingered at the doorway after saying goodnight, like she was waiting for me to say something, do something. It was subtle, but I noticed. It began the following week. Samantha was out again, her new habit of disappearing into vague plans, no longer even trying for believability. She kissed me on the cheek on her way out the door, wearing perfume she hadn't worn in years, a dress that wasn't for me, and no bra under it. I watched her go, wondering if she ever once felt guilty walking out like that. If she knew I could taste the lie before she even opened her mouth. Chloe arrived right on time. She brought homemade muffins for the kids, banana chocolate chip, still warm. Max devoured 2 before dinner, and Ellie insisted on saving 1 under her pillow like it was treasure. Chloe laughed, that same effortless laugh that always managed to uncoil something tight inside me. She moved around the kitchen like she belonged there. Like she'd always been part of this house. That night, after the kids were down, I was flipping through Netflix without watching anything, just letting the screen scroll endlessly. Chloe came in quietly, a glass of wine in one hand, a soft blanket draped over her arm. No plans tonight? I asked. She smiled. Just this. She gestured at the couch. It's been a long week. I nodded, and she settled next to me. Not far, not close. Just enough. I noticed she had changed into something more comfortable. A loose sweater that fell off one shoulder, shorts barely visible beneath it. Her legs were bare, curled beneath her on the cushion. Her hair was still damp from a shower. I couldn't stop looking at her. And she knew. We talked about small things at first. Her professors. Her childhood. She told me a story about a failed camping trip and how her mom once left a raccoon in the back of the minivan for 3 hours without realizing it. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in what felt like months. And then the conversation shifted. You seem different lately, she said, voice soft. Different how? I don't know, she said, looking into her glass. Just like something's on your mind. I studied her face. A lot of things are on my mind. She looked at me then, really looked. Her gaze didn't flinch, didn't soften. It held. I felt it too, she said. That something's off. With her. With you. With this whole house. I didn't say anything. Just let the words sit. She leaned back into the couch, pulling the blanket over her lap, and sighed. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you happy?" she asked. "With her?" I didn't lie. "Would you believe me if I said no?" Her lips parted slightly, as if she wasn't expecting the honesty. She blinked, then nodded. "I would." There was a silence after that. Not awkward, just heavy. Her eyes dropped to my hands. I realized I'd been gripping the edge of the couch cushion so tightly my knuckles were white. She reached over, slowly, and placed her hand on mine. Warm, soft, still. My pulse kicked hard. "I hate watching you pretend," she said. I looked down at our hands, her fingers lightly brushing against mine. My mouth was dry. I didn't speak. Couldn't. "Sorry," she whispered, starting to pull away. I caught her hand before she could. She looked up, startled, but didn't pull back again. I leaned in just slightly, just enough for the tension to flicker like static between us. Her lips parted. Her breath caught. I could smell her skin, warm and sweet, like vanilla and something deeper. Then the sound of a door opening upstairs snapped the moment in two. Chloe jumped, pulling her hand away as Ellie patted down the stairs in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes and mumbling about a bad dream. We both stood quickly, instinct kicking in. "I'll get her," Chloe said, her voice a little too quick, a little too high. I nodded, still rooted in place. Chloe scooped Ellie into her arms and whispered gently, soothing her, carrying her upstairs with practiced grace. She didn't look back. Not once. I stood in the dim light of the living room, heart still pounding, every nerve in my body aware of just how close we'd come. The next day, something was different. Chloe was more animated with the kids, smiling more, her laugh louder. But every time our eyes met, something flickered behind hers. Hesitation, curiosity, want, and something else, something that felt like danger. Later that evening, when Samantha was upstairs getting ready for another night out, this time apparently a late yoga class, I found myself in the kitchen with Chloe again. She handed me a glass of water. Our fingers brushed. It happened again. That jolt. But this time, she didn't pull back. Instead, she looked at me and asked, quietly, "You sure you're okay?" I stared at her. Not even close. She leaned against the counter, eyes fixed on mine. "Then why are you still playing along?" I stepped closer, not touching her, just letting the silence answer. Then I said, "Because I'm not sure how much longer I can." She held my gaze. That look, open, vulnerable, bold, melted whatever hesitation still lived inside me. She nodded once, slow and deliberate. "I'll be here," she said, voice barely above a whisper. Later that night, after Samantha left, I stood at the top of the stairs, listening to Chloe hum softly while reading a bedtime story to Ellie. Her voice was gentle, melodic, steady, and all I could think about was the moment our hands met. The shift had started. Something had changed, and there was no turning back now. It was the way she asked that question. Am I still just the babysitter? Not in a flirty tone, not playful or teasing. She asked it with her eyes searching mine, with her lips parted just enough to suggest there was more behind the question. She asked it like she already knew the answer, but wanted to hear me say it out loud. Wanted me to admit what we were both already feeling. And I almost did. The words were right there on my tongue. But I hesitated, because it was Samantha's weekend away. She'd packed Thursday night. Said it was a girls' trip. Some old college friends were getting together at a lake house. She even showed me the Airbnb listing on her phone. "Nothing fancy," she said with a shrug, brushing off my skeptical look. "Just wine and gossip. No invitation for me to come along. No kisses goodbye. Just a promise to call if she had service." I didn't ask questions. Didn't need to. The moment her car turned out of the driveway, I felt the house shift. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful, it was loaded. And Chloe was already scheduled to watch the kids all weekend. That Friday night, the kids were asleep by 8. I was downstairs on the couch, bourbon in hand, the lights dimmed. I wasn't pretending anymore. I wasn't waiting for an accident or a slip. I was waiting for her. She came down the stairs barefoot, in leggings and one of Samantha's oversized sweaters, the one with the stretched collar and sleeves too long for her arms. It hung off her shoulder, exposing the smooth line of her neck and collarbone. She looked relaxed. Too relaxed. I raised an eyebrow as she walked into the living room. She saw the bourbon and smiled. "Is that offer still good?" I didn't even have to ask what she meant. I just nodded and stood, grabbing another glass from the kitchen. When I returned, she was already curled up on the other end of the couch, legs tucked beneath her, hair pulled into a messy bun that still somehow looked perfect. I handed her the glass and sat beside her. Not close, not touching, but not far. We sipped in silence for a while. The TV was on, but neither of us was watching. She glanced over at me. She really left you for the weekend? Yeah. No invite. I gave a dry laugh. She hasn't invited me to anything in a long time. Chloe tilted her head, studying me. You're too good to be left alone. I turned to her. So are you. Our eyes held. Then, softly, she asked, what are we doing? I knew what she meant. I set my glass down slowly. Do you want the honest answer? She nodded once. I think, I said carefully, we're standing on the edge of something, and neither of us is pulling back. She looked down, her thumb running along the rim of her glass. What happens if we fall? My voice was quiet. I don't think I'd regret it. Her breath hitched just slightly. Then she asked the question, am I still just the babysitter? I stared at her for a long moment, letting the question settle. Then I leaned in. Slow. Deliberate. No, I said, my voice low. You're not. She didn't move away. In fact, she closed the space between us. Our lips touched, barely at first. Soft. Tentative. But the second she kissed me back, something snapped loose inside me. I reached for her, cupping her jaw, and her hand slid into my shirt. The kiss deepened. Desperate. Hungry. All the tension, all the stolen glances and brushes of fingers. It poured out of us like a dam breaking. Her body moved over mine like it had been there 100 times before. Natural. Like we'd been waiting for this moment from the start. We didn't make it to the bedroom. The couch was enough. The way her body arched under mine, the way she gasped my name, the way she clutched me like I was something she didn't want to lose. It wasn't like anything I'd had with Samantha in years. Maybe ever. And when it was over, when the storm settled and the room was quiet again, she curled against me with a contented sigh, her fingers tracing lazy circles across my chest. Neither of us said anything for a while. There was no awkwardness, no guilt, just silence. Then she whispered, that was... Yeah, I said. It was. She propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at me. What now? I brushed a strand of hair from her face. We don't tell anyone. Not even her. I gave a quiet laugh. Especially not her. She nodded slowly. Okay. But I could tell something in her had shifted, too. There was no more pretending. No more hovering on the edge. We'd stepped across the line. I watched her get dressed in the soft lamplight, pulling the sweater back over her bare skin, smoothing her hair. She caught me watching her and smiled. I should go before I fall asleep here. You can stay if you want, I said, surprising even myself. She hesitated, then shook her head. Not tonight. She leaned down and kissed me again, slower this time. Deeper, like a promise. And then she left. I lay there in the aftermath, heart still pounding, wondering how everything had changed so fast. The air still smelled like her. My skin still burned where she'd touched me. I wasn't thinking about Samantha. Not even for a second. The guilt never came. Only the realization that I wanted more. More of Chloe. Her laugh. Her body. Her eyes locked on mine like I was the only person in the world. And now that I'd had her, now that the fantasy had become something real, I knew I wasn't going to stop. We weren't done. Not even close. The next morning, the house was too quiet. I woke up on the couch, the throw blanket barely covering me, Chloe's scent still clinging faintly to the fabric. The sun filtered in through the blinds, pale and indifferent, as if the night before hadn't happened, as if nothing had changed. But everything had. I sat up slowly, the ache in my muscles a reminder of just how far things had gone. How far I had gone. The echo of her moans still lived in my ears. The taste of her still ghosted my lips. My skin still buzzed with where she touched me. And the worst part? I didn't feel guilty. Not in the way I thought I would. Not in the way people talk about in stories, with shame washing over them like a cleansing tide. No, what I felt was power. A raw, masculine edge that had been dulled in me for too long. I felt wanted again. Chosen. It had been years since Samantha looked at me the way Chloe had. I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a cup of coffee, the house still quiet. The kids were with Samantha's sister for the weekend. Another detail I hadn't questioned at the time, but now saw as strangely convenient. I leaned against the counter, sipping slowly, replaying everything. The way Chloe had melted under my hands. The way she moved. The things she whispered. The look in her eyes when she realized she had me. It hadn't been like anything I'd expected. It was better. It was raw. Intense. Reckless. The kind of sex that burns everything behind it and dares you to follow. And I had. Without hesitation. Without remorse. And the moment it ended, the way she curled into me like I was her anchor, that stayed with me more than anything else. I'd had sex with Samantha 1,000 times. But never like that. Never like it was survival. I didn't hear from Chloe that day. Not a text. Not a call. Not a flirty meme or a slime message. And it was maddening. I didn't want to push. I knew enough not to chase her down. But still, after a night like that, the silence was deafening. Part of me wondered if she regretted it. If she was giving me space because she thought I needed it. But I didn't need space. I needed her. The next evening, just as the sun dipped behind the rooftops, my phone buzzed. Chloe, need a distraction? 3 words. That was all it took. I texted back immediately. You know where to find me. No emojis. No games. 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find her standing there in a hoodie and jeans. No makeup, hair in a ponytail. And somehow she looked even better than the night before. Her eyes were bright. Playful. Bold. Hi, she said. Hey. Neither of us moved. Then she stepped forward and pushed the door closed behind her without breaking eye contact. Her fingers slid up the front of my shirt. I couldn't stop thinking about it, she whispered. Me either. She kissed me before I could say anything else. This time, we made it upstairs. Into the bed I used to share with Samantha. Chloe pulled off her hoodie and tossed it aside, standing there in just a sports bra and those jeans, looking like a dream I'd never let myself have before. It wasn't rushed this time. It wasn't just lust. It was thorough, deep, measured. We took our time, exploring each other like we had the whole night ahead of us. And we did. Every touch was deliberate. Every breath, every whisper, every gasp. And when it was over, she didn't move. She just lay there, her head on my chest, her fingers tracing the lines on my stomach. This wasn't a mistake, she said, her voice muffled. I know. I liked it more than I liked it with her. That surprised me. I looked down at her. You? She nodded slowly. Samantha? It was fun. It was new. But it wasn't this. Something tight and possessive curled in my chest. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect to want to hear it, but I did. What was it? I asked. She looked up at me. It was a distraction. You were the real thing. I stared at the ceiling for a long moment, heart pounding harder than it should have. Chloe shifted, propping herself up on one elbow. What happens now? I turned my head to look at her. We don't talk about it. You want it to be a secret? For now. She studied me. Because of her? Because of everything. She nodded. Okay. But something in her face told me she wasn't entirely okay with that. She didn't push, but she wasn't done thinking about it, either. She stayed the night. And in the morning, she was even bolder, climbing on top of me before I was fully awake, her mouth at my neck, her fingers in my hair, her body hungry and fearless. That time was different again. Wilder. Riskier. It was beginning to feel less like a secret and more like a life. I walked her to the door as the sun rose, watching the way she smiled at me before slipping outside. Same time next week, she teased. I nodded, already missing the weight of her. And when I closed the door behind her, something struck me with such clarity it made me stop cold. I hadn't thought about Samantha once during the entire night. Not one memory. Not one question. Not one flicker of guilt. She didn't exist when Chloe was in my bed. And that scared me more than anything. Because I was starting to realize something. I didn't miss my wife. I missed who I used to be, with someone who actually wanted me. You don't notice the triangle until the weight starts shifting. At first, everything balanced. Chloe was still sleeping with Samantha. She was still babysitting the kids like nothing had changed. She'd still linger after bedtime and share wine with my wife while pretending to watch bad reality shows. She'd still flash me those secret smiles, brush her fingers against mine, sneak into my room when Samantha was gone. She played both sides flawlessly. For a while, so did I. But triangles aren't meant to last. They always collapse. The first sign came in the form of a text. Samantha was in the shower, her phone face up on the nightstand. I wasn't looking for anything. Honestly, I was just reaching for my charger. But the screen lit up. Chloe, wish you'd been more into it last night. Everything okay? I stared at it longer than I should have. Then I slipped the phone back and walked into the bathroom. Steam clouded the mirror. Samantha was humming softly, scrubbing conditioner through her hair like her biggest concern in the world was split ends. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. Not after Chloe. Not after knowing what real heat, real intimacy, felt like again. Not after hearing her whisper, "You feel like home," while riding me in the bed Samantha and I used to share. But what hit hardest about the message wasn't that they were still sleeping together. It was that Chloe was growing bored of it. The next few weeks only confirmed what I already knew. Chloe started showing up on nights Samantha wasn't even out. Some nights, she'd text me directly after bedtime. "Can I come down?" And then she'd appear in the hallway in one of those soft tees that hung off her frame just enough to drive me crazy. We didn't always have sex. Sometimes we just talked. Sometimes we curled into each other and didn't say a word. Sometimes we sat at opposite ends of the couch, watching a movie, the heat between us more addictive than anything physical. But more and more, she started canceling with Samantha. One night, Samantha came into the kitchen holding her phone, looking annoyed. Chloe bailed again. Said she's not feeling well. That's the third time this month. I shrugged. She's got school. Probably overwhelmed. "She used to love coming over," Samantha said, almost more to herself. "Now I feel like I barely see her." I bit my cheek to keep from smiling. "You barely see her because she's with me." I didn't say it, but I thought it. And I think that's when I realized I was starting to enjoy the secret a little too much. It wasn't just about Chloe anymore. It was about being chosen, being wanted, about stealing something back from the woman who stopped seeing me as a man and started treating me like a fixture in her house. Samantha had her affair. Now I had mine. Only difference was, Chloe started picking me more often. One night, after Samantha had gone to bed early with a headache, Chloe and I sat on the porch under the stars, a bottle of wine between us, a blanket draped over both our legs. She leaned her head against my shoulder. "You ever think about just leaving?" I stiffened slightly. "Leaving what?" "This house. This mess. Her." I didn't answer right away. She pulled back just enough to look me in the eyes. "You ever wonder what it would be like if it was just you and me?" I looked at her then. Really looked. At the curve of her cheek in the moonlight. At the way her fingers played absently with the stem of her glass. At the hope flickering just behind her voice. And I realized something terrifying. I did wonder. More often than I cared to admit. Chloe leaned in and kissed me. Slow, deliberate. Not rushed like before. Not frantic or dangerous. It felt real. It felt like hers. She stayed that night. And in the morning, she made pancakes with the kids while Samantha slept upstairs, blissfully unaware. But the balance couldn't last. That weekend, Samantha got suspicious. I was in the garage, wiping down the hood of the car when she stepped out, arms crossed. "She's pulling away," she said. I didn't look up. "Who?" "Chloe." I forced a casual shrug. "She's 22. She's got a life. She's not just the babysitter. You know that." I set the rag down slowly. "What are you saying?" Samantha hesitated. I feel like something's changed." "Between you and her?" She nodded, eyes distant. She used to look at me like I was electric. Like I was something she couldn't believe she got close to. And now she looks at me like she's already gone. I didn't know what to say to that. Because she was right. Chloe had already started pulling away from her. Emotionally, physically, sexually. Whatever had sparked between them had faded into obligation, and she was choosing me now. But Samantha didn't know the full extent. Not yet. She walked back into the house without another word. That night, Chloe snuck into my bed again. And this time, when she kissed me, she whispered something new. "I think I'm falling for you." I froze. Not out of fear, but because I wasn't sure if I was falling too. It was supposed to be revenge. It was supposed to be payback. A game I could control. But suddenly, it didn't feel like a game anymore. It felt like something dangerous. Something irreversible. And all I could think as I pulled her into me was this. The house was no longer big enough for all three of us. It was bound to happen. There's only so long you can keep two lives spinning before gravity yanks one down, and the other crashes with it. Chloe was no longer cautious. And honestly, neither was I. She kissed me in the hallway once, right after tucking Ellie in. The door to the kids' room was still half open, Samantha upstairs, probably in bed with a book. But Chloe grabbed me by the front of my shirt, pulled me into the narrow space by the linen closet, and kissed me like she didn't care who heard. Like she wanted to be caught. And part of me, maybe I did too. Maybe I was tired of the lying. Maybe I wanted Samantha to see what she had let rot. What she'd traded in for whispers and half-clothed secrets behind locked doors. Maybe I wanted to be the one who made her feel the cold sting of betrayal for once. But the way it actually happened? No one could have scripted that. It was a Saturday morning. Samantha was supposed to be out early, brunch with a friend downtown, something she hadn't even bothered explaining anymore. Chloe had stayed the night, and we both woke up late. The house was still. The kids were with their grandparents. Sunlight poured in through the blinds, casting slanted stripes across the sheets. We didn't rush. We never did anymore. She lay there next to me, naked beneath the covers, hair a tangled halo on the pillow, one leg slung over mine. Her fingers lazily traced circles on my chest. She looked content. Mine. I don't want to leave today, she whispered. Then don't. We kissed again. Slow. Deep. The kind of kiss that says this isn't about sex, it's about belonging. And before I could even roll on top of her, we heard it. The front door. A key turning. Then footsteps. Chloe's eyes flew open. We both froze. A voice echoed up the stairs. I forgot my wallet. Samantha. She wasn't supposed to be back. My heart slammed against my ribs as I scrambled for my jeans, yanking them on one leg at a time. Chloe rolled out of bed, half naked, grabbing her clothes off the floor. It was chaos. I could hear Samantha in the kitchen, her heels on the tile, the clink of her keys being tossed onto the counter. And then silence. A moment later, footsteps on the stairs. We didn't make it in time. The bedroom door swung open, and there she was. My wife. In the doorway. Staring. Chloe froze. She still hadn't gotten her shirt on. Just the jeans, half-buttoned. Her bra was in her hand. I stood between them, shirtless, breath caught in my throat, the sheets still twisted around the bed, still carrying the scent of everything we had just done. Samantha didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stood there, mouth slightly open, eyes flicking between us. And then she laughed. Softly. Bitterly. Of course, she said. Chloe stepped forward, tugging the shirt over her head quickly. Samantha. Don't. Her voice cracked like a whip. Don't you dare. I stayed quiet. There was nothing I could say. But Chloe? She didn't stay silent. I didn't mean for this to happen. Samantha looked at her, eyes narrowing. Bullshit. I wanted you. Chloe said quietly. You never chose me. Samantha's face twisted. I gave you everything. I let you into my house. My family. You used me. Chloe snapped, stepping closer now. You wanted something to make you feel alive again. I gave that to you. And when you got bored, you stopped looking at me like I mattered. You were the babysitter. No. Chloe said, shaking her head slowly. I was the one who stayed when you kept disappearing. The air in the room felt electric, charged and deadly. Samantha turned to me finally, eyes blazing. And you? I swallowed hard. I didn't plan this. No, she said, voice trembling. But you let it happen. You watched me fall for her and said nothing. What was I supposed to say? I snapped, emotion breaking through. You checked out a long time ago. You stopped seeing me as anything but a placeholder. Chloe saw me. Her lip curled. She played you. Maybe, I said. But at least she wanted me. The silence that followed was deafening. Samantha stared at me, chest rising and falling. I expected her to slap me, to scream, to throw something. She didn't. She just turned and walked out of the room. Down the stairs. Out the door. The slam shook the frame. Chloe sat down on the edge of the bed, still catching her breath. I didn't think it would happen like that, she whispered. Neither did I. She hates me. She hated you the moment you stopped being her secret. She looked at me, eyes wet now, voice small. Do you hate me? No. I walked over to her, placed a hand on her shoulder. She leaned into it. But something inside me had shifted again. We weren't in the shadows anymore. This wasn't a game now. It wasn't sex and secrets. This was fallout. We sat in silence for a while, both staring at the broken pieces around us. My marriage, her connection to Samantha, whatever line we thought we could balance on. And in that silence, I knew what was coming next. There was no going back. One of them would leave. And I had to decide who I was willing to follow. I spent the next 3 nights alone. No Chloe. No Samantha. Just me, an empty house, and too much silence. The kind that seeps into your bones and makes every sound feel louder than it should. The refrigerator hum. The distant buzz of the streetlights. The creak of stairs I wasn't climbing anymore. After Samantha walked out that morning, she didn't come back. She didn't call. She didn't text. The kids stayed at her sister's. Not a word from them either. It was like someone had taken a snapshot of my life and wiped everyone out but me. And maybe I deserved that. I sat at the kitchen table one night with an untouched drink in my hand, staring at the back door. I'd replayed the moment 100 times. Samantha in the doorway, Chloe half-dressed, the smell of sex still hanging in the air. Her face frozen in that mask of shock and betrayal. Chloe's voice shaking. My own silence, heavier than any admission. The fallout wasn't violent, but it was final. There was no patching this. No apology would undo what we'd done. Samantha had left me with a choice. Her or Chloe. But the truth? That choice had already been made. She just hadn't seen it yet. It didn't come down to who was more attractive or who said the right things. It wasn't about lust, not anymore. It was about who made me feel like I mattered. Like I was seen. Like I was still a man, not just a husband. Not just a father. Not just someone to pass in the hallway and forget to kiss goodbye. Chloe made me feel real again. With her, I wasn't just existing, I was wanted. And Samantha? She had stopped choosing me long before Chloe ever showed up. She'd pick gallery openings over date nights. Work drinks over movie nights. Sleep over sex. Silence over conversation. And when Chloe came into our lives, she didn't just betray me. She didn't even hide it. She flaunted it. Paraded it behind closed doors like I was too blind to notice. She lit the match. I just learned how to burn too. On the 4th day, Samantha finally called. I didn't answer right away. I let it ring once, twice, almost 3 times. Then I picked up. Hello. There was a pause. I'm coming by, she said. When? Now. She hung up. I didn't move. 10 minutes later, she stepped into the house like she still lived there. Her eyes scanned the room, spotless, empty, cold. I stood near the kitchen island, arms crossed, watching her. She didn't wear her usual armor. No makeup, no jewelry, just a sweatshirt and jeans, her hair pulled back like she hadn't slept in days. We need to talk, she said. I nodded. She didn't sit. She just stood there, arms at her sides. I can't forgive you. I didn't ask you to. But I need to understand it, she said, voice cracking. I need to understand why. I stared at her. Why did you cheat on me first? She blinked. That's not what I asked. But it's where this started. She looked away. Was it because I wasn't enough? I asked. She hesitated. No. It was because I was bored. Lonely. You were always tired. We stopped trying. So instead of talking to me, you let her into our bed? It wasn't about sex, she snapped. It was connection. And what I had with Chloe, was that just sex? Samantha's mouth opened, then closed. I didn't plan it, I said. But you never once checked in. You never asked why I looked tired. Or distant. You just stopped seeing me. She sank into the armchair, like her legs couldn't hold her up anymore. I thought I could have both, she whispered. You and her. But you stopped choosing me, I said. Long before she did. She looked at me, eyes glassy. So what now? I took a breath. I think we both know this marriage died a while ago. She nodded slowly. You want to be with her. I already am. The silence between us was heavier than anything we'd shared in years. She wiped her eyes. So this is it. Yeah. She stood again, walked past me to the front door, then stopped. I loved you, she said. I know. And you loved me. I did. We didn't say goodbye. She left without looking back. Later that night, I packed a bag. Just enough clothes to last me a week. I didn't want to drag out the ending. I left a note for the kids, simple, reassuring. Dad's going away for a bit, but he loves you more than anything. I knew I'd see them again. That part wasn't over. But this part, my marriage, it was done. I drove across town to Chloe's apartment. The city lights blurred past the windshield, but my mind was clear for the first time in weeks. No more secrets. No more split loyalties. No more pretending. When I knocked, she opened the door without a word. She was in one of those soft tees again. No bra, her hair loose around her shoulders. Her eyes searched mine, cautious. Is it done? She asked. Yes. And you're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. She stepped aside, let me in. And when I set my bag down on her floor, she walked into my arms without hesitation. No words. No questions. Just warmth. She kissed me slowly, like she knew it wasn't a game anymore. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel like a man trying to escape. I felt like a man who'd finally arrived. I packed lightly. Just a week's worth of clothes. A shaving kit. My watch. I left the suits, the wedding ring, and the framed photos on the nightstand. I left the life I thought I was supposed to live. And as I zipped the bag closed, I felt no panic. No dread. Just clarity. There were no final conversations, no dramatic confessions. Samantha and I had already said everything that mattered. Maybe not with all the words, but in what we did and what we didn't do. The truth is, she started this. She brought Chloe into our home. She blurred the lines. She lit the first match, thinking I wouldn't notice the burn. But I did. And when it came time to respond, I didn't yell. I played. And I played better. I stood in the doorway of what used to be our bedroom and took one last look. The comforter she picked out. The dent in the pillow where she used to sleep. The closet, still half full of her clothes. The silence in that room felt hollow. Cold. Like a story with no ending. But I had mine now. And it wasn't here. I drove across town under a bruised sky. The kind of dusk that lingers, unsure whether to fade or ignite. Chloe's apartment was on the second floor of a converted brick building, tucked between a flower shop and a coffee place that always smelled like cinnamon. I parked the car, stepped out, and took a breath. There was no script for this part. No revenge left to serve. No secrets to weaponize. Just a door in front of me, and a girl on the other side who had seen me more clearly than anyone had in years. I knocked once. She opened it like she'd been waiting. No words. Just that smile. The same smile that started it all. She wore a sweatshirt that hung off one shoulder, bare legs, no shoes. Her hair was a little messy, like she'd just woken up from a nap. She looked like home, and not the kind built with bricks and rings and routines. The kind built in someone's arms. I stepped inside, dropped the bag near the door. She closed it behind me. "You're really here," she said softly. "I am. You sure?" I took her hand, placed it against my chest. "This feel unsure to you?" She smiled again, but this time it faltered at the edges. I thought maybe you'd go back to her. That maybe this was just. It wasn't. Her eyes locked on mine. Then what was it? I stepped closer, brushing her hair behind her ear. It was a wake-up call. For her. For me. She nodded slowly. "And now?" "Now," I said, "the game's over." We stood there for a beat. A silence that didn't need to be filled. And then she reached up and kissed me. Not frantic, not fiery, just full of certainty. It was the kind of kiss that said, "We made it." Later, we lay in her bed, limbs tangled, a lazy breeze drifting through the open window. Outside, the world kept turning. But in that room, everything had stilled. She rested her head on my chest. "Do you think she'll be okay?" "I think she'll be fine," I said. "Eventually." "You don't sound angry anymore." "I'm not. Not even a little." I turned to look at her. She gave up on me. I just finally gave up waiting. She studied my face. "You think it would have happened like this if she hadn't brought me into your life?" "I don't know. Maybe not." "But you're glad it did?" I didn't hesitate. "Yeah, I am." She kissed my shoulder and closed her eyes. "So what happens now?" I looked up at the ceiling. "We stop pretending we're broken people trying to fill a hole," I said. "We start being real. Honest. Even when it's messy. Especially when it's messy." She smiled against my skin. "You're not who I thought you were. I'm not who I thought I was either." In the days that followed, there were texts from Samantha. Not angry ones, just practical. "What do we tell the kids? How do we divide holidays? Who gets the dog?" I answered with care. I didn't want war. I just wanted closure. She asked me once if I ever loved Chloe while we were still together. I told her the truth. "I think I started to. But you'd already stopped loving me long before that." She didn't reply, and maybe that was enough. Eventually, the dust settled. The kids adjusted. Chloe moved in. Life became something new, not perfect, but alive. Full. Real. We had fights. We had make-up sex. We had laughter over burnt pancakes and arguments about who forgot to buy toilet paper. And through it all, she looked at me the same way she did that first night, like I was worth choosing. So no, I didn't win. This wasn't a contest. It was a reckoning. And when the pieces all fell, I stood where I wanted to be, next to the woman who saw me, and walked away from the one who didn't.